This is the Just Believe podcast. Today, I'm honored to interview this young man. I've been watching him grow on Instagram. The movement that he does, and not that he does, but what he's doing is incredible. He's talking about mental health and the side that it's good to see another male talk about it. What my challenge is, when I was trying to look for somebody to talk about it, it was all females. It wasn't, and not just like regular females. It was older females, which I was following, but they didn't speak that same language. And I always talk about language, the importance of it, not saying that they was talking a different language, but the relatability language. And this young man that I'm going to interview today is Trevor Tyson. How you doing today?
Dude, I'm doing so good. I automatically just feel like I'm sitting in a therapist chair. So this is good. This is really good.
Well,
Glad to be here.
Thank you, man. I've been watching your podcast grow. It's dope. What you're doing. I hate to say this, and it's not like to be cliche, but I think it's powerful, especially seeing a male talking about it, right?
Yeah.
To be honest, like one every 5 Americans have some sort of mental health challenge. So it's very common. People don't think that. And for this to like be a guy and putting your emotions out there, people may give you feedback like, hey, tone it down, man. We don't want to hear that. Let's talk about some sports or some music or something like that. You're getting a little too emotional. You've been listening to Drake. And it's like, no, dude, like sharing our emotions is not just a gender thing. It's a human thing. And thank you for doing this, man. So tell the people about your story and whatnot.
Yeah. So I always like to circle back my story back to my senior year in high school when I really remember first having a panic attack. I was very uncertain about what my next steps were. I was touring at the time, promoting an event. So like doing national tours and stuff. I missed about 200 days of my senior year. And I just remember being in Birmingham, Alabama at this bigger church event. And I just started having these feelings of like, oh man, I'm getting sick. I'm nauseous. I got a headache. I don't know what's going on. Why am I all of a sudden so alert? And just like, I didn't know I was in fight or flight mode. So I had this terrible panic attack, and it was like, daggum, like, what was that? I still hadn't connected the dots that it was panic. In fact, I didn't for a few months. I lived in denial. I was just not doing things that I would normally do. I didn't get out of bed for a week after I got home. And my dad was finally like, hey, let's go. And we went to, they had a lake house at the time, and we went down there, and it was just like, I needed to get out of bed, but I wasn't going to do it myself. So they literally had to come, and they didn't realize I was going through a panic attack at the time. Like they had no clue that it was a disorder. I had no clue it was a disorder. I was just kind of like, oh, I'm sick, just playing that card. Like, I guess it's the flu. And it was panic attacks, which in return stole my calling, stole my purpose, and I allowed it to do so because I wasn't educated on what was going on. So I just kind of went with the flow and what I was feeling. And that led to depression, which led to me just hating life. I didn't want to be there. I wasn't necessarily suicidal, but I wasn't necessarily not suicidal either, So it was just a super hard time for me. And I sat in that and started chasing the American dream. I started working for AT&T, making really good money, bought a house, did all the things that quote unquote would make you happy, especially as a 19-year-old. And I wasn't happy. So I guess it was 2.5 years after that, I finally decided to go to therapy and went through that whole shebang and found a medication that worked for me, and I was able to live life again. And what I say is, with a lot of Jesus and therapy and medication, I was able to just walk back into my calling. I was able to pick the microphone up where it was left off, and God met me where I was. And I was like, man, I'm never going to be able to be back on stages with these big name artists like I was. And, through a lot of prayer, Jesus, therapy, and some medication, 4 months after I finished therapy, things had got escalated bigger than what they were before. So that's what opened up the door for Trevor Talks to get started. Starting a clothing brand, now starting a business. It's like all of that had a ripple effect, like people ask me all the time, don't you wish you would have got help earlier? And it's like, I don't have any regrets with how things went down because I wasn't educated on how to handle these things. And I'm still no professional. I'm not a therapist. I'm not a psychiatrist, but I'm a kid that lives with it, 23 years old. I live in the country, like middle of nowhere. So out here, therapy wasn't as accepted. So there was no way I would have known. Even school therapists, not dissing like school therapists at my school or not. I don't know if they listen, but what up? I had no clue. Yeah. I had no preparation for what was going on. I felt like I had no support. So it comes down to like, there were no way my parents were going to know. There was no way I was going to know. Who was supposed to know. So like, that's why it's so important for people to educate themselves on mental health and look for the signs, look for mood swings and fatigue and all of the things that you can visually see in someone, and then even hear in their conversations. So like, it was just such a process, and it's still a process for me to just educate myself and learn to be me. Learn to operate, and especially like you were saying before, to be a man and do it. Oh man.
Oh, it's rough, man.
And for some reason, correct me if I'm wrong, other guys look at guys that are open about their mental health like there's something crazy going on with them, but deep down they're fighting too. So even if you're a guy listening to this and you're really discouraged by other men for being open about mental health and they call you too emotional or whatever, just take that as a thank you. Learn to view the different mindsets and approaches people have as appreciating you for being emotional and showing them that it's okay for them to be that way. And, a little bit of mindset goes a long way. So
yes, there was something that I wanted to ask you about, because you said you had a panic attack in high school. Can you explain like the symptoms? So if someone that's listening, they can understand, oh, this is a panic attack. It's not just something to just, oh, it was nothing. It was just a little like, hiccup or whatever. Can you explain to them, like, what was you feeling? Like, was it like everything moving fast? Because different people have different type of panic attacks.
Yeah. So first off, I have panic disorder, which means like I don't necessarily have anything to be worried about. My body just goes fight or flight, and it's like, oh, well, here we are. But a panic attack, like in my case, all I can remember is my heart was beating out of control. Things like, it was really hard for me to focus on anything, except for right was in front of me. And, there's a concert going on in the auditorium. There's a bunch of people out in the lobby. We're telling people about a big event on the National Mall. Like, there's so much I'm supposed to be doing at that time, but I just can't do any of it. So I just go walking around, and I was trying to puke because I felt nauseous. And I'm very raw about what happened. Like, I was literally out in the parking lot in some bushes trying to throw up because I thought it would make me feel better because I had that nauseous feeling in my throat, which is, I could handle like the adrenaline and everything, but when I start feeling nauseous, that's when it shuts down for me. It's not necessarily the heart rate or anything like that. Like, I'm an adrenaline junkie, so like, I'm good with that. But once I start feeling nauseous, I can't focus on anything. Like, you start focusing on what's going on inside your body. So to really answer it, it's really comes in the form of nausea for me and instantly wanting to get sick. Okay. So like, I just feel like I'm gonna throw up. So I'm gonna try to throw up, but it just doesn't happen. Like, it's my body at the end of the day.
How was the conversation with your parents? Did you tell them about it like during high school, or did you wait till like after you went to seek therapy or whatnot?
I started to get open about it after therapy. Okay. So that was 2 years after. And I know they could tell there was something going on. But again, like, none of us had ever dealt with anything like that before. So it's just like, oh, he needs some space. He's being too emotional. He's in his head. He's depressed. Like, they handled it the best they could. And I give them props to that. But I also like strive to help parents understand what's going on with their kids now, because I know what it's like to be that kid. So I never say like, oh, I'm giving them a pass or anybody a pass for anything. It's just like, how can we learn from what we've gone through and help other people to navigate through the same thing? So, It was about 2.5 years after, and I'm pretty sure I opened up about it a little bit, but then what really jump started, like, it was just my name at the time being a blog, Trevor Tyson. What really started that, and then eventually into Trevor Talks, was the process, right? It was me understanding that I had to learn something, and now I want to help educate other people. So in everything I do, I like to say it's a combination of entertainment, inspiration, and conversation. Like, let's have a conversation about it. Just like you, you didn't really map out the interview like we spoke about before. Like, nobody wants to hear a bullet point interview. If they want to listen to that, they can go listen to Jimmy Fallon or Ellen. And no shade on them. I love their shows, but like podcasting, and especially your show, from what I've heard, is really good about just being raw and being authentic. So if you're a parent and your kid's struggling, or if you're a kid and your parent's struggling, just be open to listen. Don't be pushy and quit trying to fix them.
It takes time.
So when you show up to your depressed, anxious kid and you're like, you need to get over it, you need to shake it off. Nah, you're making it worse, bro. Like, at that point, you're lighting the fire. You're pouring gasoline on that thing. So just be open to listen. And just because you don't understand it doesn't mean it's not happening. They call depression a silent killer for a reason, and you don't want to help kill somebody, you know?
Yeah, people handle depression differently, right? For me, I've been struggling with my depression for over 10 years, right? But I was always like smiling, being the jokester, similar to Robin Williams, right? Like, had that good energy. Everybody wanted to be around, but on the inside, I was lost. I was numb, and I didn't know how to express that emotion. I didn't have a guide to express myself. You know, I was always taught, you're a man, be strong. You can't be weak, can't be vulnerable. You know, it's a sign of weakness. So it was a lot of things that I had to suppress, and that led to like this monster that I couldn't control. So with me, I had a not only like a suicide like ideation, but I did attempt it because I felt lost, right? And I want to personally say, you're probably one of the bravest people I know to be like, you know what, there's something wrong with me. Let me actually go seek help. I didn't seek help. I waited till like the last moment, until my like ex-girlfriend, who is now my wife, found me in a position where it was like, okay, you need help. This is the red flag. But that process of going to therapy, it sounds like it was so important for you to map out, how can I deal with this?
And just like you, the girl I was dating at the time, the only girl I've ever dated, I've only dated one girl in my life, shout out to her. She actually is the one that pointed me to therapy. So I wouldn't have went as quick as I did, or I may have never went without having that person to be like, hey, I love you, go get help.
Yeah.
I can't help you.
Yeah. No, I love that. It's crazy what a woman can do. The power of love.
Yeah, right. And one thing that really helped me is, a friend of mine pointed out, I made a video saying like, my name is Trevor Tyson, my fear is a liar, like a clothing brand promo. And she was like, you said my fear. And I was like, yeah, like it's what I went through. She's like, but you took ownership of it, and that's not okay. And at first I was like, who are you? Like, why would you say something like that? But then I sat back and I was like, okay, I see where you're going with this. Like, when you say my anxiety, my fear, it's kind of like the movie How to Train Your Dragon, or whatever it is. It's a cute story, and it's imagery to a sense, and it's a kids movie. But when you think about mental health like that, or if you think about dragons in general, like whether it's biblically or in literacy, can you actually train a dragon? Probably not. So when you start to think like, my anxiety is off the walls today, but if you think of it, instead of it being a part of you, and you take ownership of it, and you're like, nah, this dude's coming trying to rent a room and I'm about to kick him out, like, it's not gonna work. So the anxiety that I faced is not me. It's not my identity. I'm not identified by it. Anxiety is a symptom. Depression is a symptom. Suicidal ideation is a symptom. All of these things are symptoms of something. So one thing that's been really powerful for me, and I hope it is for many other people, is it's not yours. So when you say my this, my that, you're claiming it as your own. But at the end of the day, like, you're stronger than your symptoms. Your identity is who you are, not what you face. So if you are a person who like slept around a lot, and then you find religion and you get out of that, you don't want to be known as that, the other person you were. If you really want to overcome your mental health and really overcome the things that have been holding you back, cut that relationship off. It's a toxic relationship. So just a little nugget that really helped me, and it may not help people, it might help other people. When I really sat down and was like, I'm going to like take that mental shift and say, this is not me. This is not mine. This is a symptom of something that I'm facing, and just cut ownership off. It's like a rich parent enabling their kid for so long, and they get on drugs, and they're finally like, you're on your own. Look at it like that. Like, you're kicking them out. I've had friends that I've had to cut out of my life for toxicity reasons, and just look at it like that. Like, hey, we were homies, or I thought we were, but we're just gonna cut this off right now.
Yeah, it's time for me to create these boundaries. Like,
yeah, so boundaries, mindset, and perspective are so huge. And I don't read as much as I would like to. I order more books and actually read, but get like an Audible subscription.
Yep.
Listen to there's this book that really helped to me. It's author Mel Robbins, and it's called The 5-Second Rule.
Yep.
And that was a really crucial launch point for me.
The countdown.
So like,
I love her. Yeah.
She's great.
Yeah.
And I really listened to what she had to say, and I actually bought it from multiple people. And then she had a journal. She came out with a 5-second journal, and it's just such good content. And I studied on her. Yeah. So, she has a journal, and it's called the 5-second journal. And you really just map out how your day is going and what you're feeling today. And like, you don't have to go buy the journal. Like, I'm not Mel, I'm not trying to sell it. Like, just map out these things. Like, this is how I'm feeling today on a scale of 1 to 5. This is exactly where I'm at mentally. How can I get better with it? What exercises can I do today? How can I do this, that? And on a personal level, like right now as we speak, like I'm trying to figure out some fatigue that I've been having, like with just being exhausted all the time. So one of the things I was like, okay, I'm going to clean up my diet. So for breakfast/lunch, because I don't really wake up in time for breakfast. Like, I'm just not a morning person at all. I'll stay up all night. It's not mornings. I'll eat whole orange, like not the little cuties, but actually get it and cut it up. And so fresh and great. And blackberries, raspberries, maybe some baby carrots, graham crackers. Like, just take little steps and like, I'm gonna eat a little bit healthier today, and I'm gonna do this and I'm gonna do that, trial and error. And you know, you just grow. It's a process. It's all a process. But for me, it started with that perspective and that mindset shift of just like, this isn't mine. It's a symptom, and how can I help reduce these symptoms almost to none? And I still struggle, but it's not a part of me. I purely believe that we're all stronger than our symptoms, and I 110 billion% believe that anxiety and depression are not our identity.
Yeah, you know, it was something that you touched upon that is so major to anyone that's dealing with any mental health challenge, and it's the support system, the community that you're in, right? If you don't have the right people, how can you make that breakthrough, right? Because we, you know, when you battle with whatever mental health challenge, it feels like a breakdown, and you need the right people to lift you up in order for you to have that breakthrough. So you can be like, okay, well, this is not a weakness. No, this is a superpower that I just need to learn how to maneuver, right? Because we look at superheroes as like, you know, godly-like figures, but they have to learn how to control their powers. So can you explain the importance of that support system that you was having to help build you back up?
Yeah, and if you really think about it and you put yourself in Superman's shoes and your kryptonite is not being around people, that's when you start to realize like, oh, support's huge. Getting in a community, like I'm surrounded by my best friend and his wife live across the street, and then after I bought my house, my brother bought the one next door, and then my other brother, my twin, moved in with him. And so like I have this built-in community now, and I'm not saying to go get houses next to each other and everything. I don't know your family situation, but it worked for me. And online support, like, you know, people can be there and not really be there, you know. I've got friends that live 8 hours away that I'm closer to than people that live right down the road from me. So really just open yourself up for community, and you don't necessarily have to be religious or not, but like church communities are really cool. Just people coming from all different walks of life, and they're all looking for something. Like if you go to church, you're looking for healing or rest or breakthrough. Like even atheists and agnostics and Muslims like will visit Christian churches just because they seem like there might be something there. I'm not telling you to go and get saved. That's what I did, but it's really, it's so crazy to me how it's like you walk in a church door for me, and it's almost like you just walked into someone's house. It's a healing space. Like we're all looking for healing, and you don't necessarily have to be in a church building. You can encounter that anywhere. But for me, like having that community of people at a church, like even if I don't talk to everybody, you feel seen, you feel loved, you feel a little less lonely when you leave. And I can't guarantee that'll last forever, but it's definitely worth a shot. It helped drastically for me because I wasn't going to church for 2.5 years, and I was still a believer. I was still a man of faith, still was working in ministry, but I just got stabbed in the back at a church and associated that with that through the whole panic disorder thing. So I had to overcome that and realize that it wasn't the overall church. It was a few bad apples. So everybody lives, everybody learns, and everybody has to make the exception. Like, okay, I'm going to break through this. And I'm not going to let this hold me down, because that 1 second you take to say, I'm done. Like, what could you have done to get yourself out of that predicament at that point? So hope that answered the question.
No. Yeah, you did. You did. Because like I had a panic attack a few months ago, right? For me, it's like heart racing, everything. You can't focus. One of the techniques that I learned, and I didn't know the name of it. It's just something that like I just naturally just did. I just sat down and counted 10 and just started looking at certain objects until like the panic attack happens. To like it end. Typically they last the max about 10 minutes. If it's like longer than that, then you might want to call 911. It might be something else. But for me, my panic attack was probably a good 4-5 minutes, right? And I sat down and I sat outside and I just looked at certain objects, like 4 objects, and I just slowed everything down. They call it like grounding. Like, you know, you just look up, down, and look around and just bring it back down to earth. That was one of the techniques that really helped me deal with that. I don't get that many panic attacks unless like I'm handling too much, right? Too much stress or whatever. During that time it was, and now I learned how to speak up more, right? Like, hey, like it's a little bit too much for me. I'm overwhelmed. I got to chill out. But that took me probably about 2 to 3 weeks to like get back to myself, because instantly I was fatigued. Instantly, right? Like the fatigue with everything. Wanted to sleep, didn't want to do interviews, didn't want to do social media, didn't even want to be around the missus, right? And I learned, learn how to speak up. But not only that, you know what? Let me switch up the diet, as you said, which was key, right? Because I was eating more Chipotle, more processed food, right? Like
Yeah.
not saying there's anything bad, but I was like moving around, like going around and doing everything else. Then I was like, okay, let me start cooking at home a little bit more.
Mhm.
And then let me cut out the eating out like restaurants or whatever. Because like, it's so easy to just go out. But once I did that, like you realize the change. Not
Yeah.
only in your body, but mentally, you realize, okay, this shift is
They call
happening.
it brain food for a reason, and I
Yeah.
didn't really notice that until recently. It's
Yeah.
like if you're feeding your brain crap all the time,
Oh yeah.
like my guilty pleasure food, like if I have a really, really good day or something, like most people are like, I want to go to Longhorn, or I want to go here or there, like these fancy steakhouse. I'm like, bro, just give me some McNuggets and some buffalo sauce. Like that's all I want. And a large Coke and some fries. Like that's all I want. And it's okay to reward yourself every now and again, but you can't eat that every day.
Yeah, yeah. And like the crazy part, I don't really eat out that often. But it was a time where like I was just busy. I was doing a lot of like running around.
Yeah.
And I was just like, man, like I'm not gonna have enough time to make it home to make a meal. Let me just swing by Chipotle and get the usual. And a lot of my friends like pick at me because I'm a vegetarian, right? And they're like, dude, like, how the hell can you have a panic attack and you're a vegetarian? You're like the healthiest eater. And I'm just like, well, one, I wasn't eating my normal routine, which are the superfoods, which I'm super big on. But two, I was handling different types of pressure that I'm not accustomed to. Being a new entrepreneur, it's totally different. There's no, hey, let me just
break
clock
out.
in.
I break out when I get stressed out. Like I started a new company this year, and I mean it just has a different level of stress because it's all on you at that point. So like especially with what I do is branding and marketing and PR and such. So like when you're dealing with higher profile people, it's like one project can make or break. So
they want the best.
Yeah, and I mean, like I'm being vulnerable now, like I break out, so like this whole side of my face is like broken out. So I get it. Like stress is crazy. Stress is a huge factor on your mental health. One way I found to combat that is going on walks and runs outside and just being a little more active than before. I'm not saying to go bust out a 45-minute balls to wall workout at the gym, but I mean, just be a little active, start off slow and move up. And a healthy diet and a healthy lifestyle. I don't live the most healthiest, but I try. Those are so key.
Yeah. I make sure at least 3 times a week I do about a 20-minute walk. And that really helps me think on working on content ideas. Or sometimes I just
you just don't want to have content rolling out every day. And on Instagram up until I guess a few weeks ago, it may have been last week, I don't know, but I just quit caring as much about planning out content. So like I used to do like a checkerboard feed where it'd be like a white hand-drawn post and then a picture and then just keep going and going. And now I'm like, I don't think people care as much as I did, which is healthy. It's a healthy thing to think. It's like nobody's going to care about your content as much as you do. So do what's healthy your baby. For you. Yeah. So like, I was like, why am I doing this? It's like, oh, I was trying to be like, have some sort of like, I don't use filters on my photos. I don't edit acne out. Like I'm very vulnerable in that, but I don't have to live for an algorithm. And I've found myself focusing more and more on the podcast side of things and making content out of that than just creating content to create content, because there comes a time and a place for a much needed mental health message. But when you're just making yourself come up with content to have content, there's no power in it.
Yeah. No, I definitely agree generic. With that. Definitely agree with that. You're talking to a guy who was doing good morning videos every like from Monday through Friday. Did it every day.
Trevor Talks started as a daily show and it lasted a week and it failed because I couldn't stay up.
It's a lot. It's a lot. And then I was just like, at some point I was like, I'm doing too much.
Yeah.
Let me take something else off my plate.
So many people are like, what's that girl's name? Her name is Chelsea Lynn. She has a persona on Instagram and YouTube called Trailer Trash Tammy. We were watching some of her stuff yesterday and she like she's crazy, but they were like, she makes so much money just to do stupid stuff. And it's like, if y'all only knew how much she probably puts into coming up with this stuff. Like, I can't imagine editing video, coming up with content,
That to
working with
catch people
sponsors.
attention,
Yeah.
it's super hard. And the
You can't
sponsors want you to
just,
do something creative. Yeah.
yeah. And being I can't imagine being a comedian. Like, you can't say the same joke twice without somebody saying something. Like, that's got to be harsh. And like what you're saying about Robin Williams, you know, like it's a lot harder than what meets the eye. They can be that bubbly person on camera, but
Never know what someone's dealing with outside of that.
yeah,
That's why I'm kind of everyone.
Yeah, it's like we need to focus on like Chester Bennington from Linkin Park. His lyrics were really dark.
Yeah.
And it's like nobody thought, like, I'm not saying his family and friends didn't know stuff was going on. Nobody could have prevented what happened, but it's almost like we gravitate towards negative, like dark content.
Well, I think, you know, back then nobody was really talking about mental health, to be honest with you. You know, I really just came up to the scene within probably like a year and a half now. And during the pandemic, this is the most I've ever seen anybody talk about mental health. Nobody was really talking about it that much, as far as like seeing people out there talking about, hey, I'm a person living with bipolar, or I'm a person that's living with schizophrenia. Nobody was really that open. Like, you know, we knew some people had issues, but they wasn't publicly out there saying it. Yeah. Now it's like, hey, yeah, let's talk about this, because now people are in situations where it's not the normal, right? Yeah. Like, we're still in the pandemic. We're still recommended to wear masks and get shots until who knows when. But now it's like different times and different things that unfortunately it took a pandemic for people to be like, hey, I'm a person who's living with suicide ideation. I'm a person that's living with whatever mental disorder that they have, right? And it's not really a disorder. I always tell them it's a superpower that we just have to learn how to use.
Everybody's got a little superpower in them somewhere.
Yeah, we all do.
So we got to acknowledge that and really choose to care and focus and actually just like give people attention. Literally, we live in a generation of, we'll be driving and someone will call us, and we'll be driving, breaking the law, saying, we'll call you in 2 minutes. Like, just call them in 2 minutes.
Yeah.
Like, if you can't talk, like, you don't owe them a response to everything. So like last week I was supposed to meet up with some friends in Nashville, and I was like, the day of, I was just having a really bad panic attack. So I was like, you know, hey, I'm gonna have to take a rain check. I'll be back in 2 weeks. Let's try again then. And I was like, hey, like, you know, having panic attacks and stuff. I didn't know them that, but it's all up to what you're willing to share. And if you're open and you're okay with being vulnerable, great. If you're not there yet or don't feel like you ever will be there, give yourself a challenge. Don't press yourself. Don't feel bad for yourself. Don't hate your response to things. Truly just choose, like, I'm going to be a little more open with myself today. And one thing that I used to do is, like, I would never take a breather during interviews, or I would never pause. I would never give myself time to think, because I thought that I had to clap back. Like, you have to be that person. But now, if I need to think about something, I'll just pause. Like, I'll start thinking about it. Yeah. And you offer a certain aspect of vulnerability, honesty, and just being transparent. Like, that's my whole thing right now, is like, I want to live life more transparent than I was before. I want to live more vulnerable. I want to be honest about where I am right now. So, like, my clothing brand, I started after I overcame mental health issues, and it's called Fear is a Liar. And the more I've grown and the more I've matured, it's like, what would I choose to promote? Something that's promoting transparency, or something that is just a little more edgy? And it's like, it's the same message, but how do I want to package it? How do I want to approach this mental health thing. And it's like, it's okay to be aggressive, but let's talk about it. Let's be a little more transparent than we were before. And promoting a transparent life, what does that mean? Like, transparency means like that it's light enough to let light through, to go through something so you can see through it. And when I think about life in that aspect, it's like, what if you could see through the human body, and not like the pervy movies that have like x-ray vision and dudes are looking at women's chests and stuff? No, like, it's like, what if you could actually see what is going on in someone's body? Like, you could actually read out anxiety, depression, self-doubt, suicidal ideation. What if you could actually see these things? How would you treat that person? And the more transparent we get with ourselves, the more transparent we can be with other people, which invites them to be transparent themselves. So I want to be that for somebody. I want to be that transparent light that allows the light to go through them, to be a little more vulnerable and just start that ripple effect of light and hope. And I don't regret starting Fear the Liar at all. Like, I love the message, still gonna rock the merch, but I'm growing, I'm being vulnerable, and I'm being transparent with people. That's just where I'm at right now. I want to be that light, and if I get bored with a project, like, I'll move on. You know, it's not a failure.
No, it's not.
It's like, it's a rebrand, and it's like, if we're afraid to rebrand ourselves, like, what message is that sending? So I'm choosing to overcome the anxious thoughts about, you know, taking a successful clothing brand and completely rebranding it, not even offering the same product at this point. And it's the same message, it's just a different packaging, and I'm excited about it. I've been less anxious since I've been talking about it, and just being open with people, because I feel like I'm getting to shed a whole new light on honesty and vulnerability.
Yeah, it sounds like you're owning it.
Yeah, it's like, I just want to be transparent with people and invite them to do the same. Like, let's start a vulnerability movement. And it's not even just for guys, like girls too, but I'm a guy, so obviously, like, I understand guys a little bit more.
Yeah.
Like, and even nowadays, like, everybody's got a different gender pronoun and all of the different labels, and it's like, I'm choosing to be transparent with you because I want you to be transparent with me, and I want to respect you even if you don't respect me. Yeah. So how can we help be there for each other? So if you have a different pronoun or whatever than what you appear, like, if somebody doesn't understand it, take the time to help them understand. Yeah. Don't lash out on them.
Educate me. Don't sit there and judge me. Yeah, no, you know, as you talk about vulnerability, it's one of Brene Brown. I'm not sure if you ever heard of her.
Her Netflix special is great.
Yeah, The Power of Vulnerability. I love that book. I got it on Audible. I do too much moving around, so most of my books I listen to. And she talks about, why do people look at vulnerability as a weakness, right? And one of the reasons why I said that's my superpower, right? I'm not just going to be vulnerable with the guy at like Target that I don't even know, but I'm going to be vulnerable with my inner circle. Hey, this is what's going on with me.
Vulnerable with the guy at Target, like uncomfortably vulnerable. Like,
you're that guy.
How are you doing? Not good. I'm like, bro, like, me neither.
But like, sucked. well, being a person, right? When you don't really, like, for me, I'm not, like, everybody's different clearly, but for me, I wasn't used to sharing my emotions. So I had to be vulnerable with my inner circle first to be vulnerable with others on the outside. And that helped me. Hey, okay, how you doing? Do my daily checks. If somebody's, like, as you said, is going through something, cool, let's talk about it. You know, my DMs, there's a few people that I connected with that we've been talking, or, you know, FaceTiming, whatever you want to call it, for hours, because they was vulnerable, and I knew how to, okay, hey, let's talk about it. All right, let's get this negative thought out your mind. Let's actually talk about this. Sure. Okay, cool. Hey, try writing. Helps me out. Oh, you're really pissed off? Write some more, and guess what? Tear that up, and then you feel a little bit better.
Whitney Cummings said something that I heard the other day, and she's like, if you're really ticked off at somebody, if it's at work or whether it's your spouse, partner, whatever, write out an email and don't send it. Like, get all your emotions, get all of it out, and sleep on it. Don't send it.
You know what? Knowing my luck, I would write it out and accidentally send it. That's why I'm laughing.
Like, even if you don't do it in your email, like,
like put it in your notes.
Yeah, like, just write everything out. If you feel the same way in the morning, send it. Just
we call that
view the consequences. Like, view the consequences. What's the ROI on this? Am I going to get anything out of this long term? Does this need to happen? Am I just being overly aggressive? Like, just sleep on it. And I've been like, and I've even like gotten myself in trouble at times for being too quick to talk about something with someone, and then word gets back around. Like, especially don't do that at work. Don't do that. Like, there's time and a place to talk, and so there's definitely time and a place to shut up. Like, just stop talking. Call your therapist, call your friend. Like, you don't have to address something right then and there. Take time to cool off, because when I worked at AT&T, man, I blew up on a manager a few times, and like, he deserved, but it's like, sometimes you got to stop. Like, go for a walk, give yourself a breather. Now,
and reevaluate the situation.
They keep pressing forward, like my boy was, like, then I could have handled it different, but we would have had a conversation. We would have had probably a two-way conversation instead of one-way at that point.
So this was outstanding. You dropped a lot of gems. I appreciate the vulnerability, but also the knowledge and some of the signs, the early symptoms of someone that's having a panic attack. Before I let you go, please tell the people how to find you. Go ahead, brother.
Yeah, like, I guess the simplest place would be to go to Instagram and just type in Trevor Talks. You can do that on Google or wherever, and everything will show up immediately. It's that's the simplest way to find me. And dude, thank you so much for having me. And I hope that everybody found a little gem in this, and I pray blessings over your audience and your show as well. This has been so therapeutic for me, and I appreciate you having me on.
Anytime, man. Anytime you want to do this, you're always welcome to come back. Thank you.
Let's do it.
All right.
You free an hour?
Yeah, right. All right, guys. This was the Just Believe podcast. Until then, I'll see you next week. Peace.